Welcome to the Cash Flow Academy podcast. I'm your host, Andy Tanner, and this is where we make investing simple. And I'm joined, this is my favorite day of the week.
Yeah.
I'm joined by Noah Davidson, Corey Halliday. Gentlemen, I'm looking forward to our discussion.
So much fun
here. Make sure you like and subscribe and hit your notification bell when new episodes are released. And also drop by yourinvestingclass.com. We have some cool stuff there. And there's a cliche that says, well, this is life-changing, but it really is. If a person goes there, gets those free resources and follows some simple instructions that are in that little goodie we have there, at the end, they will look and say, this will change my life. No question about it. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to talk a little bit about Doge today and the impact where's the money going to go and the impact that it could have, because it could be big. But before we get into that, let's start with some brief introductions. Let's start with Noah today.
Hey, there is a non-zero chance right after this I'm going to bail and go hit the ski slopes because I'm Noah Davidson and I'm addicted to the good white stuff, and you sometimes have to make sacrifices.
Are you skiing again? 'Cause
I am skiing again.
Noah did a Sonny Bono into a tree 2 years ago, and I'm like, dude, no more Black Diamond Hills.
But I'm back on the slopes, and so one of the reasons I got into trading and investing is because I wanted to be a ski bum when I grew up. And so I've dedicated my life to studying gamma slopes.
I'm learning all the jargon. I'm learning I don't ski, but I'm learning the jargon. Like I know what a yard sale is now.
Oh, yeah.
I know what a big yard sale.
Stuff just flying everywhere.
Man, dude, total yard sale, bro.
I'm assuming when you hit the tree, it turned into a yard sale.
You know, I went and I paid a visit to the tree this last week, and I had
Just bring your chainsaw
I think
with
I
you?
found it. No, I couldn't really tell which tree it was, but
Oh, boy.
You knew the area.
I was in the right ballpark.
There you have it.
There you go.
So welcome, Noah.
Well, I also went skiing. Took my whole family skiing the other day up at Brighton, so that was a lot of fun. Corey Halliday, I invest in the financial markets. I absolutely have a passion for learning, for education. Formerly worked on Wall Street as a Series 7 licensed option principal and managed hundreds of traders and just love the markets.
Noah trades so he can ski. Corey trades so he can golf.
Yeah, exactly.
So I text.
I'm a lousy golfer.
No, Noah. It's February.
Yeah.
It's February, and I text Corey. I say, hey, you got a second? He goes, I'm tied up right now. I'm like, he's golfing.
Yeah.
So I call him, and he's out in the cold. It's like 30 degrees.
You
out there.
can hear the wind just whipping.
And I go, what hole are you on? He goes, 5 or whatever it is. I go, who are you with? He goes, by myself.
Yeah, nobody else is dumb enough to be out there.
So I'm February golfing diehard. Out there, the grass is all brown.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you got to hear me. I've got like my earbuds in, and I'm like asking, like, "Hey Siri, where's the S&P right now?" And she responds and gives me. I'm like, "Hey Siri, where's CEG right now?" And I just ask her ticker symbols.
Updates.
And I'm getting updates, and I'll whip out the phone and I'll check on positions. It's
That's
awesome.
Yeah.
I sit home by the nice, warm, cozy fire. So today we're going to talk a little bit about Doge, not Dogecoin.
Department of Government Efficiency
and waste and all this. Here's the thing. Politically, everything is political. And so politically, if you look at both sides of the aisle, everybody knows both sides of the aisle that there's just huge government waste.
Right.
And to go in there with and start cutting, and I don't follow it really well, but I was listening to the press secretary, and she was talking about, we have some, program in Afghanistan for information overhaul or misinformation defense, crazy stuff. And they went through a lot of the toilet seats that are $900 type stuff, right? And so there is a lot of ways that you just say, man, that is crazy.
Yeah.
But what we really want to talk about is not the politics of it, but the policy, which is very related, is I guess there's rumblings that they're going to write some checks out to certain folks. And I don't think I'll get one again. I didn't get one in COVID. Did you get one in COVID? I didn't get one in COVID.
I didn't get one.
We didn't qualify for that. But let's start with this. If you're a Cash Flow Academy student, and this is kind of a sleeper, But if you're a Cash Flow Academy student already and you haven't taken our little Fed class, you should take it. Now, the policies have changed since we've done the class, but it does take you through the levers that the Fed has to tweak things. And it also talks a lot about fiscal policy as well.
Yeah.
And the reason I give that class away to members of the Cash Flow Academy, I mean, it's a longer course than the 4 pillars, actually, because no one is going to study the Fed, but I feel it's important for the students. So I give that class away for free to our students, because if you'll actually find it really fascinating, the interplay between monetary policy and fiscal, and an investor absolutely is interested in that stuff. Absolutely is.
Well, if you want, I mean, understanding financial education starts with an understanding of money,
how it moves.
And I discovered this stuff back during the financial crisis when it was kind of learned. I'd already been trading and investing for a while, but when I started understanding what they were doing with the zero interest rate policies and the bailouts and where the money was coming from and where it was going, and kind of lifting up the lid and seeing what's under, or seeing what's under there, you start to realize, oh wow, like this really affects the value of assets. This really affects people's purchasing power. The monetary policy, everything else is downstream from taxing, spending, and monetary policy.
Printing money. Yeah. So on the fiscal side, you really have 3 factors. You have GDP, how the economy, you can grow. I don't know that we can grow our way out of the problems that we have. You can grow. You can tax or reduce taxes, and you can spend or reduce spending. And so if you want to do all 3 for a healthier balance sheet, in theory, just from a balance sheet standpoint, you would have a growing GDP. You would be able to tax more because there's more out there to take, and you would spend less.
Well, you can lower the tax rate, but if you increase GDP, recoup more tax revenue. There's a balance in there somewhere.
Gets bigger. The pie gets bigger, and so if you maintain. Now, in the 90s, we had a tech boom. And, you give credit to Bezos for this, you give credit to Gates for this, you give credit to Jobs for this, you give credit to Facebook, Twitter, all these other guys, right? And so that exploded business, and it grew the GDP so large that the taxes we collected actually covered what we needed. And Bill Clinton, in his State of the Union, got a standing ovation, goes, our deficit is 0. Yeah. So I was back in the 90s. A lot of people
that was the last time.
That was
right? Last time we ever
5
had.
minutes. It was amazing.
5 minutes.
But we actually had a balanced budget.
Then they said we're going to raise taxes and spend more. Yeah. But what was interesting about that is that most people, when they heard that, thought our federal debt was gone, because they don't even understand. Yeah. I'm not kidding. If you go jaywalking like Jay Leno used to do, and you walk up to a person on the street and say, what's the federal deficit or what's the federal debt, they think you're talking about the same number.
No clue, yeah.
So, back then our debt was probably, around a couple of trillion. And now it's gonna hit 40, before we know it. So you have those 3 factors, and there was a guy named David Walker. You guys remember David Walker?
Yeah.
So David Walker was the Comptroller General of the United States. Comptroller General. He's the nation's lead accountant, and he worked for the GAO, the Government Accountability Office, who's the investigative arm of the Congress.
Is he the one that quit?
He quit. Yeah. He was frustrated. He worked under both Democrat and Republican administrations for years. And I remember he was on 60 Minutes, and he said, this is back when bin Laden was at large, and he said, the biggest threat to the U.S. is not some dude in Afghanistan hiding in a cave. Yeah. He said it's our own fiscal irresponsibility with what we would call income stability, and entitlement programs. And, Doge look at Doge. They've saved a few billion, I think, a couple $100 billion.
Yeah, you can actually look it up on the U.S. debt clock. They've got that new section on there.
Yeah, it's a new little brown golden section, and it's growing. Their money they're saving is growing, but it's a drop in the bucket compared to $1 trillion. $1 trillion deficit. It's not even close. So while it makes people feel good that, oh, we're cleaning up government, we're waste, and no one's going to notice these stupid programs going away. No one's going to notice that. But I thought the idea here was to reduce the deficit.
Yeah.
So the word is, let's do
Send
some
out
helicopter money.
some stimulus checks.
Yeah.
And the good thing about it, you mentioned this, that there's a difference between the total amount we're in debt and just our deficit that we're running constantly. And balancing the budget means, it's kind of like the old check writing. The old checkbooks, you'd write what your check amount was and you'd balance your checkbook, right? You'd say, okay, how much do I have left, and so forth.
Oh man, you are old.
Yeah, and that's how old I am. But, we're spending every single year, we're spending way more than comes in. So that deficit just keeps getting larger and larger and larger. And obviously, there's ramifications to that. So the idea behind Doge is fantastic. And I think most people should be behind that. The ones that aren't behind it. Yeah, I heard a funny comment that was like, if you're finding the waste and where things are being done illegally and you're going to research that and somebody says, no, stop. Well, then they're the first ones you should investigate, So
sure.
That's true, when we want this type of reduction of waste. But the idea of sending out checks sort of misses the point, right? Isn't it more important to bring down the deficit, to balance the budget, to get rid of some of our existing debt? And so the argument would be, well, more spending, this will help. And I'm not against people getting checks. It's just
if you're J.D. Vance, you got to love this because he gets to say, "Are you better off than 4 years?"
Yeah, and
says, well,
Trump gets to
$5,000 check,
and Trump gets to write his name on the check, which was a big topic of. this is coming from, and he gets to have Donald.
Signature than I do.
That's right.
Nobody.
Right. It's not like a Social Security. It's coming from Trump.
So you can understand the political standpoint of why they want to do it.
Sure.
But my argument would be, we've got, if you're a family that's constantly getting into more and more debt every year, you just don't have enough, and you put it on your credit card, and you don't have enough. And then you finally figure out, there's ways we can cut out a lot of these expenses, and you go, well, we can cut out a lot of these expenses, but let's go splurge on this for a while.
You get your tax refund, and instead of spending it to pay down your credit card, you go on a cruise. Let's do that.
That's
right?
basically what it would be. It would be that equivalent. And so,
I think that's a really good exercise is to take the debt clock, lop off a bunch of zeros, and look at it as if it was a family budget.
Yeah.
Take it from 35 trillion, whatever, down to like 35,000, and all of a sudden, everybody in the world can go, oh. Yeah, that's not sustainable. You can't keep up with that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to have a little break, and when we come back, I'm going to say really nasty things about people, which I usually don't do, but I'm going to. I'm going to go there. You shouldn't talk nasty about people, but I am. And I'll tell you who I'm going to put my crosshairs. And if you've listened to the show before, you already know who I'm going after here. But I'm going to go after somebody, a couple of people, when we come back. So we'll be right back.
So far, it's been great. I needed a source where I could really enrich my education through stocks. I didn't really have an avenue for it, and it's helped me a lot. The simplicity has really gotten me on the track to where I enjoy the learning as well as it's really solidifying in my mind. And they're not just trying to sell you something, they really care about the people that are in the course, and they really do care about you and your personal goals, and what you want to do is to help you and your family and whatever your goals are in life through that. So it's really been great.
Welcome back to the Cash Flow Academy podcast. I'm your host, Andy Tanner. I'm with Noah Davidson, Corey Halliday. We're talking about Doge. We're talking about this waste and how this could affect investing and inflation. When you dive into, I love the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and I will forever be in Robert Kiyosaki's debt for writing that book. I remember when I was reading it, we were making, we were trying to create money out of lead toothpaste, melting it down and literally trying to make money, and cute and fun story. And then on about page 30 something, about 30 pages in, for the first time in my life, I saw a picture of a financial statement. And it didn't look like an SEC financial statement, just a bunch of line items. It were boxes and arrows, and it didn't need numbers to understand the direction of the money. And it was so brilliant and simplified.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is why people are rich and why people are poor. Okay, I got this. Well, as I began to delve further and further into, let's just take 4 boxes: income, expenses, asset, liabilities. I began to learn, well, there's different kinds of income. There's portfolio income. There's earned income from a tax standpoint, right? There's, true passive income from royalties and things like that. And the government taxes, different incomes in different ways, capital gains, things like that, dividend income and savings income and interest income. There's lots of different ordinary income, right? Expenses, there's luxuries and necessities, right? And you start to really kind of savor and understand that. Assets, there's income producing assets and there are non-income producing assets. There's assets like Bitcoin, which is a non-income producing asset. Gold, non-income producing asset. And some of them depreciate really like a guaranteed depreciating assets.
Yeah.
You can even have TARP. You can have toxic assets or troubled assets.
Yeah.
Or you can have income producing ones. You can have assets that hedge. Well, what about liabilities? Well, there's good debt and bad debt. Good debt is debt that I don't pay off, that someone else pays off. Bad debt is debt that I have to pay off. Good debt buys assets that pay for themselves and pay the debt off. But here's a big one, and it has a lot to do with this fiscal idea. You could take your liability column and you could divide it into borrowed money and promised money. And that distinction, we're going to release the new 401k soon, not soon, somewhere within the next year, we hope. But my part's done. I've written everything. It's with the publishers.
Publisher, yeah.
And so they're going through it and doing all the things they do to it. But one of the things I took a lot of time writing about was promised money. So let's get this straight. If I borrow money, I receive funds. In other words, there's money that came into my hands. It's a funded liability. And I can take that money and go spend it. So the money has been borrowed, funded, and spent. And that's the national debt. We've sold bonds. The money has come in, cash from those bonds. And then we spent the money on whatever. And now we owe to repay money that's been borrowed and funded. Unfunded liabilities are different. That's money that has not been borrowed. It has not been funded. It has been promised. So let's say that I go to my wife and I say, all right, on our 40th wedding anniversary, and that's assuming she doesn't discover what an exit strategy is in the next 10 years.
A stop loss.
Yeah, stop loss, cut bait. And I wouldn't blame her if she did. Who would, right? The bigger, better deal is definitely out there and it wouldn't be hard to find. But assuming that I try to keep her and I say, I promise you that we'll go to Paris on our wedding anniversary. We'll take a private jet and we'll sit the biggest suite in the Four Seasons, the best French restaurants for a week. And, you promise this elaborate thing. Or I say to my son, hey, if you don't get a basketball scholarship and you get good grades and that doesn't work out, I'll pay for your college, whatever.
Yeah. That's
a promise. I haven't borrowed any money. I haven't funded or spent anything. It's just looming out there as an obligation that I've made. That idea of segregating promised money from money that's borrowed is huge, because if you look at the national debt, you have 37 trillion probably, something like that, 38.
I will look it up.
Pull it
while
out.
we're at
I mean,
it.
it's going to change.
Come on. I know by the time we're done with this.
By the time this is released, it'll be,
I'm reminded of the Office episode. I don't know if it's a brutal one, Scott's Tots, where he promises the kids that he's going to fund their college, and then the kids get to graduation and they're all celebrating because Michael Scott is going to pay for their college, and of course he doesn't have any of the money, and then he's like, I've made a lot of promises in my life, but that one was by far the most generous.
So what is it?
Well, I am also so blind. I have to pull out some bifocals.
You got your bifocals inside of a money clip.
Yeah.
I do. Well, that's no
only
bifocal
Illuminati.
case.
Only Illuminati
All right, hey,
gets
there we
that
go.
stuff.
Okay, this is
Look at this.
When I wear my
Maybe
contact
maybe
lenses,
he's
I
in
have-
the
all right.
Illuminati.
36,500.
36,000.
36 trillion.
Trillion,
36.5
A little bit
trillion.
different.
So
Yeah, sorry, in
36,
my head I already
37.
I just cut off the numbers in my head. The unfunded. You
Okay.
looking at that yet?
Well, let's.
Well, let me
So we
let
got-
me give you a few
we
more
got
numbers here.
36
That's
trillion.
36.5 trillion.
Yeah.
That is debt per citizen, $107,000 per citizen.
That's not bad.
That's citizens, not taxpayers. Per taxpayer, it's
gonna be more.
323,000.
Means a third of the people, 2/3 aren't paying a lot
And
of
Doge
tax.
has clawed back 117 billion.
Yeah. Okay.
If
so
you
that's
if
a drop
you
in the bucket.
pay taxes, you currently are indebted $300 and some odd $1,000.
Yeah.
But that's how much the
Well,
government
and
has
if you make more
borrowed.
money, it's even more than that.
Yeah,
It's on
for
a
sure.
sliding
That's
scale.
just for the on
So,
balance sheet.
so look at this. So this is why this Doge and this stuff is a drop in the bucket, and it preys on financially ignorant people because all they see is $5,000. That's awesome. They don't understand the obligations. So you have about I can't remember what the percentage is, but the majority of the U.S. budget is for what we call income stability, and it's just paying people to pay for their medical bills and to pay for their pensions and to pay for their old age. It's income stability and to pay for poverty, right? People who are struggling. And so that's a huge amount that this waste, I think the reason they get rid of the waste is $100 billion in waste is a drop in the freaking bucket compared to what we owe. And so you take a certain amount of time, a couple of decades or whatever it is, and you say, for generation Alpha or whoever's after disease, for the people that are around right now, not the unborn, the people that are around right now, we owe about $211 trillion.
The unfunded debt
Yeah,
obligations.
I think it's 211.
Unfunded debt obligations are 226 trillion. Back up, hold on.
It's gone up.
That is $666,595 per citizen, not taxpayer.
Okay, so 225 trillion, is that what you said?
226.8.
226 trillion dollars.
of promised. So if
Of
you add
promised
those
money.
two together, that's about $1 million per taxpayer.
So-
the
debt that we currently have,
I bet it's
and then
more
the
than that.
debt that we've promised.
You
Well,
better,
if it's
you better get to work.
if it's 600 and some odd thousand plus the 300 and some odd thousand, I mean,
Okay,
so I've made about $1 million worth of promises.
Yeah. So what?
The government's made that on my behalf, I
Yeah,
guess.
thank you for that.
You're such a good dude.
Yeah.
So this
I mean,
is your way to socialism because it creates dependency on government, right?
Yeah.
This is your pathway
Yeah.
to socialism because we have to take care of society this way, and we've created this dependency on it. And maybe it's a good thing in some ways because we don't want to throw grandma off the cliff in the wheelchair like they always accuse everyone of doing. But here's what happens: is as these dates loom, which we would call a qualification. On the day that I come to the office, dude, and say, hey, I've graduated, time to pay for my tuition now. If he has no money, what does he do? He has to borrow it. So that 226 trillion will migrate from promised money into actual borrowed money.
Exactly.
And the schedule at which that happens and the pace at which that happens. And here's what's really frightening is that 226 trillion, if we had 10% inflation, that's going to go up 10%,
Yeah.
right? If you have more inflation, that's at today's prices. So if healthcare went up, that goes up. The interest on the debt of borrowing this, every study you see says unsustainable. So I think it's cute that we're going to send $5,000 checks out to everybody, but the math is tough.
Yeah, it's my least favorite aspect of everything. Cut out government waste. I'm fully on board. But I don't think that the checks that went out in COVID actually had the impact for people. I get the idea of during COVID, it was a crisis. Let's make sure everyone has enough to survive. Perfectly on board with that.
But it makes
then
the
they
rich
kept they kept sending money. I mean, there were like tax break. I don't know. I don't remember all of COVID.
There is an argument for it. It's the velocity of money.
Right.
Because you put that into the average people's hand, it's going to flow right through their
back.
hands, back into the economy.
But that's the problem. But that's
Yeah.
the problem. It goes back to corporations, so it goes from the consumer to the producer, like we always talk about.
Yeah, but you get people to vote for you.
But then ultimately they end up worse off because now you're creating some inflationary impacts that raise prices that further hurts the individual. You know, the lower income gets hurt
kills their
worse by
savings.
inflation
Yes.
than it does the higher income people.
And all you got to do is go to Costco. And I don't want to disparage the president. That's not who I'm going to attack at all. I don't have a problem with that. But really, what you're going to do is you can get that $5,000. You can say, hey, let's go to Vegas and stay at Trump Tower.
Yeah.
The money goes to the rich.
Right.
It's a matter of producer versus consumer. And if you helicopter money to consumers, they will give that money to producers in exchange for goods and services at a higher price.
Yeah.
It will raise demand for what is produced, and the money always winds up. Go to Costco. This is my new bully pulpit, rant thing. Go to Costco this Saturday, and I'll make a prediction. Parking lot will be full. Costco will be full. 100% of the money goes one way to Costco. And it goes out of their pockets. That's why I want to buy Costco
So
stock.
if you get a
So puts on.
$5,000 check from the government, you should just buy Costco stock, right?
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you should become a producer. You
But
should
that's
take that money and
Yep.
become a producer and buy some kind of stocks so you can be on the other side
And that
of
ultimately is the solution. The only way to stay ahead of what they're, because they can't pay all those off, so they're going to inflate the debt away. That's the whole game plan is we'll just keep inflating the debt away, and it kind of dangles that carrot. People have to work longer in life. So the average retirement age, it's just going to keep going higher and higher. And basically, we know that inflation is ultimately where we're headed. I mean, that's just the way that they do it is they inflate the debt away. So for you listening, how do you stay ahead of that? You have to invest in the producers. You have to become a producer yourself. And the easiest way, like Warren Buffett said, the lowest hurdle to get involved is basically to buy stock. Now I own the producers. Now I'm participating in their growth, and I'm outpacing inflation.
And here's how Wall Street got their power. And by the way, I said I'd say something nasty about someone. It's Warren Mosler.
Oh, I thought you were going to pick on Larry Fink.
No, it's Warren Mosler and it's Stephanie Kelton because they think this deficit doesn't matter. And he was a bond trader, and his idea as a bond trader, Spain or something, is he said, look, we should never worry about bonds being, junk bonds if they're sovereign and they have fiat currency because they can always print money to do their obligations. So never bet against bonds because they'll just print money to, like Alan Greenspan. The United States can pay any debt it has because we can always print money to pay our bills.
Yeah.
But what the real devious thing is the 401k system. The 401k system has basically at a compounding rate of around 1 to 2%, has consolidated the ownership of assets in very few hands like Vanguard, Fidelity, BlackRock.
Yep.
Because what happens is you go work your butt off. They dangle bait in front of you called an employee match. And what is bait? It's a lure. Why are you doing it? Because you're biting on the lure.
Yeah.
It's a lure. It's an attractive. Bait is food that conceals a hook.
Yeah.
It's dangled out there to get you to do something. Well, if I give you $10,000 today, but I say you have to reduce your compounding power by 2% or 1%, you think, well, that's not going to be that bad. But if you understand compounding, it's huge.
It's massive.
So what happens is someone goes to work and they put the money in the 401k, and the 401k takes a fee. And they don't invest with any type of scrutiny. They just simply say, we now have more of the S&P.
You have three choices: the aggressive fund, the moderate fund, and the conservative fund.
But they say
the fees are the
and
same.
all of them we're going to charge you a lot of money.
They're not discriminating or brilliant. They're just saying, look, every year we're going to increase. We're going to take 2% of what you should have owned, And we're going to own it now, year
Yeah.
in and year out, compounded at 2%, year in and year out for decades. And they wind up with the lion's share, actually, because they don't have their compounding curtailed by fees.
Yeah.
So your fees actually curtail your compounding. You're taking a mess of you're selling your birthright for a mess of pottage in that match.
Yeah.
And that allows them to just simply take the fees, and they control more and more and more and more and more.
And
Until they own
by the way,
S&P.
they never took any risk. You
No.
held all the
Infinite
risk.
return, no risk.
Yep.
Infinite rate of return for them, no risk. So when you look at this $5,000 that comes out, our people, it's not income inequality, it's asset inequality.
Yep.
And people aren't, and Buffett simply at 14 or 11 years old, I think he was 11 years old, he bought his first stock.
Yeah.
And then he kept buying stock, and he didn't pay the fees, and he just began to compound, and now he has 5% of the S&P. The smartest thing we could do is give our children financial education.
Yep.
Now, Robert blames the school. Robert and I, we've never butt heads on this, I don't think, but we have different views. Robert doesn't like the school system. I don't like parents.
Yeah.
So he doesn't like school teachers. And I'm like, since when is the freaking school teacher's job to teach my kid anything? It's my freaking job. I'm the dad. And so parents should teach the life skill of financial education.
Can't teach what you don't know.
Well, that's true, but we should learn it. And like, how was teaching done before schools were around? Dad and mom took Junior, sharpened the stick, went, stabbed the fish. Then he tried and missed, and finally he or she picks it up, and then you go home.
Yeah.
You mentored mentor club owner, mentor club chief. So this $5,000 are people going to buy assets with it and use that as an opportunity to get $1 billion or $100 billion or whatever they're going to do with this Doge money?
Yeah.
Are they going to reclaim the production and let the citizens own this production rather than BlackRock, Vanguard, and Fidelity?
Yeah.
Well, they've got a few ideas they're floating out there. They're floating a sovereign wealth fund.
Yeah, I don't.
They're,
Okay,
10% here, 20% there. No, I'm just saying, like these are the ideas. And again, you can get to politics.
Yeah, let's have the government run. Let's have the government do investing. They're
Because
just-
even if
Andy,
you
can trust, you can trust them.
the
let's have
problem
someone
with
that's
that is
$225 trillion in hawk and promise
Yeah.
money. Yeah, let's let them run a sovereign
And
fund.
the
What could
problem with
possibly
that
go wrong?
is, even if you're on one side or the other and you're like, oh, they would be great. I believe in Trump and Musk. I think they would be great. Well, they're only in for a limited amount of time. So are you going to trust the next group and the next group and the next group? And obviously, I think we've all come to the conclusion that the government is not about efficiency. It's not about.
Look at Social Security as the example.
Yeah.
Like there was, as a promise. It's a future promise.
And it's a
in
train
that-
wreck.
It's in that exact
part
same
of that
thread.
number.
Yep.
It's part of that big number. But what is interesting, I think, is Richard Duncan. Is Robert will change people's minds about debt, because debt it's about utility.
Yeah.
One of the problems with the 401k program is if you take a financial statement, there's no money flowing through the liability column at all in a 401k. It goes from the income column into the asset column, back out through the expense column is the cash flow pattern, really. They got it here, employee match goes in there, sell it, spend it. And that's the cash flow pattern of 401k. The box isn't touched. So if you look at it from a standpoint of utility, because that's what debt is for. Is to be utilized like fire properly. Fire has utility. Cook your food, warm your house, light the night, defend from the beast, whatever. It can also burn you if it's misused or misutilized.
Fire.
I'm kind of a Frankenstein type of guy. I can go into that mode pretty quick. My Boris, what's the guy's name? Boris, the famous Frankenstein guy. I can do a pretty good Frankenstein. Oh, fire. How about when Gene Hackman lights his thumb on fire? How about that one? That's fantastic. Anyway, fire. So utility. So here's an interesting thing about printing money is, could printing money, what if you looked at it through the lens of utility? In other words, what are we printing money for? What is it used for? Well, it's used to basically fund income security. It's to fund consumables. You know, the grocery store, the medical bills, it's consumables. What if you had a lever like debt? Debt accelerates the acquisition of wealth. Well, if you printed money and let's say you put it into research that cures Alzheimer's, how much money do you make now globally because you printed money, and now you have an asset that'll cure Alzheimer's globally, or diabetes, or cancer?
Yeah.
I mean, if you put $1 trillion into that stuff, you probably make 3 or 4 pretty quickly. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but the problem is that not everyone's going to succeed in their. So how many trillions are going to be spent, and you may never come to that.
But isn't it like debt that way if you look at it through that lens? Because debt's the same. You can have people borrow money and fail.
And government spending in general is the largest contributing factor to GDP because they are the largest consumer of goods and services.
Yeah. So if you utilize that money to, and what would happen to if you cured diabetes and cured cancer and cured heart disease and got some cool genetics going? What would that do to that $226 trillion healthcare bill?
It would increase the debt obligations because life expectancy is now going up.
Well, but we're healthier, so who knows? I'm kind of against it. I'm just floating it out there.
Yeah. Well, that's the idea. That's their argument is that it doesn't matter how much debt we rack up. The benefits of being the first ones and the ones that can make these contributions.
Now you're for. You get to AI first.
Exactly.
General AI.
Exactly.
Right? You get to AI first. It's Sputnik. Who's going
to get there first, and who controls that? And
that's
they run the world. Yeah.
So if you're going to go and have 150 debt to GDP ratio in World War II to keep the Nazis from killing everyone, right, and taking over the world, it was probably worth borrowing the money and printing it to keep the freedom. So it's an interesting thing for investors. What is the whole discussion around? Like you said, Noah, it all starts with fiscal and monetary policy, and it all leaks out from there.
If the government gives you $5,000 and you spend it on consumables, or you take that money, invest it in financial education, or you invest it into stocks and assets, or you invest it, then that money is going to do you good down the road, whereas it's just gone.
Because you have something.
Yeah, because it's going to compound. Exactly.
You'll have something that will last, as opposed to
a one-time.
I go on a vacation, or I go on a cruise, or I do a one-time thing. That money's gone. When you buy an asset, you're not spending money.
Yeah.
And as financial education advocates, we'd love it.
For sure, but somebody collects that check, they invest it, they learn how to invest, they do those things. Well, now the money that their investments are making can be used to enjoy the good times, right?
That's a
but now,
plug for ourselves,
exactly. But I mean, it's the right way to approach life. Is if I'll delay just a little bit and have my investments generate the return, now I get to keep the investment that keeps compounding, that keeps bringing in cash flow via dividends and all those things, and I get to enjoy life. I still get to go on the vacation, but I have something there. If you always just take the money that you bring in from your paycheck and pay for your vacations, you have nothing left. But if you invest it, and then take the money that those investments make and pay for your vacation, now the investment continues to compound forever.
I was talking with my wife about this because, we do a lot of extras, and we're talking about personal development. And, she has a coach and that's something that she gets to keep with her the next day, in terms of her health and her fitness and her body. That's training the machine to do better. Well, Covey calls it PC, production capability.
Yep.
And people don't invest in themselves first. And you always pay yourself first. Invest yourself first. Invest in your mind, invest in your body, and you invest in your financial statement.
Yeah, I mean, Warren Buffett's
you get assets of your head, assets of your body, assets of your your wealth.
Warren Buffett's had investments that have made billions, and he always says the best investment you can make is in yourself. And to that exact point, because by the investment in himself, he allowed himself to create billions of dollars of wealth. And that's the point it all came from his education.
He's not a health nut because he drinks
Yeah.
Coke all the time and he goes to McDonald's every morning. But I'll tell you, he was teaching this group of kids in high school, and it started, the opening scene was he says, look, if I bought you a car, you get to pick out any one you want and I buy it for you, but you only get to have it one car.
Yeah.
For you, it's got to last you the rest of your life. So I'll buy it for you, but it has to last you the rest of your life. How would you take care of it? He says, well, the truth of the matter is that's your body and your mind.
Yeah.
You get one body, you get one mind, feed it, maintain it, take care of it, make it better, improve it. There's a guy that's in his 90s.
Yep.
I'm not going to live till 90.
You'll-
I'll die in a car accident.
No, you'll be a-
Rick Majerus
you'll
died
be
of heart
100
failure,
and-
and I never thought, everyone said he was going to die of heart failure because he struggled with it. I go, no,
Yeah.
that dude's going to die in a car
Yeah.
accident. I've driven with him. He's the type of guy.
You're
that's
not going to
like-
drive.
he's
You're not going to
driving
die
this
in a
way,
car
he's
accident.
in a
You don't even
conversation
drive.
with you, and we're on the wrong
Yeah.
on-ramp going the wrong way, on the freeway, and he's just sitting there talking about basketball as everyone's, and that's him. But he made it.
I'd worry if you ever drove, but I know you sit in the passenger
I
seat.
don't
and-
drive
yeah.
much because I don't fit in cars very
Absolutely.
well, so I don't drive very much. I
Hey,
get shit for
AI
that.
is coming. Have you?
I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I've done the
No.
self-driving. My friend has a Tesla Cybertruck,
Yeah,
and
my
I
buddy
turned
just
on.
got one.
I turned on the self-driving, and it's freaky when you're behind the wheel
it's
and you're
pretty
not
aggressive,
doing
actually.
anything. Yeah, he turned it on. What is it? Hurry mode.
Yeah.
And so it would come up on the cars,
even
and I'm
chill
like,
mode.
I'm sitting there ready to hit the brake, and he's like, no,
Even
just
chill mode
just
ain't chill.
just hang out and don't
the
do
one
anything.
thing it doesn't handle, so we have a Tesla and my kids drive it around.
Yeah.
And they put it on the self-drive,
Yeah.
And they bottomed out, man, because there was
Oh,
a dip.
did they?
It doesn't see the dip. They're like, oh, whoops, sorry, Dad. I'm like,
Yeah.
and we learned, didn't we?
Yeah.
We learned.
What was that?
No dip. No more self-driving for you guys.
That's funny.
So, anyway, great discussion. The point of it to take away isn't politics, because that's out of our control.
Yeah.
Like I get so fatigued of trying to fight politics. I just want to know what the rules of the game are, because the politics are out of my control. Now, if I was a bigger influencer, maybe I'd feel differently about that. If I felt I had a voice that people cared about.
How does my buddy Andy Tanner say it? No government policy can compensate.
I'll say it. It's the quote. See, I have no wiki quotes. That's how insignificant I am. But the wiki quote I want someday: no government policy will ever have the horsepower to compensate for a poor personal financial policy.
Yeah.
And the opposite is true, right? The worst government policy can't inhibit a good, strong personal policy. And certainly we all have victimhood of some degree, but we also have a certain degree of freedom. And as long as there's enough freedom to get up and study, then off we go.
Yep.
So there we go. Okay. Great podcast, guys. It's about learning about the Fed, about fiscal policy, about monetary policy, and then we're going to position ourselves for inflation or deflation. And that's really when you look at the bottom line, you look at the balance sheet and you say, what assets do I have that will do well in an inflationary environment? What cash flow will increase in an inflationary environment? And what assets could I have that would help me in a deflationary environment and give me cash flow there? And, Buffett, he's got a great balance in his balance sheet. He's got a good balance of cash and assets right now. It's almost as if he's just waiting for the opportunity to put that cash to work.
They seem to be positioning for some sort of crisis. So.
Yeah. So armor level 1, here we go.
Yeah.
So thank you, Noah. Thank you, Corey. Drop by yourinvestingclass.com and get the ebook. It's free. It's going to take you through a financial statement and 6 numbers that'll change your life. If you follow what it says, I think you'll agree for sure that when you're finished with that, you'll say, if I put that into practice, my situation will be for the better. I'll start improving. I'll start going. It's really good education and some good broad stuff, good big picture stuff, also some good detail, good mix of both. So go to yourinvestingclass.com, pick that up. Right now we're not advertising a class, we're advertising a book. So if you caught this episode recently, it might still be there. So because we move it around once in a while. So go there, like, subscribe, tell your friends about this, and study monetary and fiscal policy. And when you get your $5,000, don't spend it all in one place.
That's right.
All right. We'll see you next time.